The honourable member for Mississauga-Streetsville.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'm pleased to rise today on second reading of Bill C-400, an act to ensure secure, adequate, accessible and affordable housing for Canadians. You know, the choice this evening is quite simple. We could support this private member's bill, which will, I guess, host a conference, encourage a few more studies and maybe some essays on the topic, and allow for some more speeches to be made. Or members can support the unprecedented levels of funding our government has provided to social housing across Canada. More talk or more action? I know which one I support, Mr. Speaker. The sponsor of this bill tells us that it is meant to improve the access of Canadians to safe, affordable housing. Regrettably, this approach could actually have the opposite effect. By not recognizing that social housing is largely a provincial lead and moving away from the local delivery of social housing programming, this approach could lead to less effective and more costly social housing. Having said that, Mr. Speaker, honourable members should know that rather than imposing a one-size-fits-all solution, this government is pursuing and will continue to pursue a proven and effective multi-pronged approach that engages many stakeholders and facilitates access to housing across a continuum of housing needs. Rather than launching another round of meetings and discussion papers and conferences, as is proposed in this bill, we have opted for taking tangible action to address housing issues. Our government has invested heavily in a broad range of housing and homelessness programs and activities over the past number of years. In fact, Mr. Speaker, our government is already investing more on affordable and supportive housing than any other government in Canadian history. Through the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, the government contributes to Canada's strong housing finance system by ensuring that mortgage financing is available for all types of housing in all parts of Canada. En partie grâce aux produits d'assurance prêt hypothécaire et au programme de titration de la SCHL, 80% des Canadiens arrivent à satisfaire leurs besoins en matériel de logement sur le marché sans aide directe du gouvernement. At the same time, we recognize that the government cannot turn its back on those whose needs are not met by the marketplace, including low-income families, people with disabilities, First Nations households living on reserves, the homeless, and others in need. And that's why we are working with provinces and territories, municipalities, national Aboriginal organizations, the private sector, and not-for-profit groups to deliver a full range of housing support and assistance, from providing emergency shelter for those at greatest risk to assisted housing for low-income households. Regardless of what form federal assistance takes, Mr. Speaker, our government believes that local housing challenges require local solutions. We believe that the people closest to those requiring assistance are best positioned to develop and deliver effective, lasting solutions. Unlike this bill, our government's approach recognizes the constitutional jurisdiction of the provinces and the territories in this area of assisted housing, as well as the need to work with a variety of different partners in order to deliver results. When Canada's Economic Action Plan was announced, we immediately sought the engagement and support of the provinces and territories to deliver housing-related stimulus funds to the economy. Working through CMHC in record time, we negotiated amendments to existing housing agreements to ensure that the bulk of federal investments in social housing could be delivered quickly and effectively by provinces and territories. And the results speak for themselves. Through our Economic Action Plan, we created 46,000 new affordable housing units and renovated 104,000 more. Every year, the government is providing support for over 605,000 individuals and families with subsidized housing. Since 2006, over 8,900 new rental units have been committed under the On Reserve nonprofit housing program. In addition, under Canada's Economic Action Plan, over 10,800 new units were created on and off reserve. These projects not only improved living conditions for tens of thousands of Canadians, they also put people to work quickly and stimulated local economies. All of this was made possible because our government recognized the provinces and territories were in the best position to deliver housing-related stimulus funding quickly, where it was needed most, and where it would have the greatest impact. This philosophy is also reflected in the Investment in Affordable Housing 2011-2014 framework that this government jointly announced with provinces and territories in July of 2011. And under this framework, provincial and territorial governments are cost-matching the federal investment for a combined total of $1.4 billion over 3 years toward reducing the number of Canadians in housing need. The new framework recognizes that Canadians have diverse housing needs and that a range of solutions, from existing programs to new approaches, is needed. To that end, provinces and territories are responsible for designing and delivering affordable housing programs that address specific housing needs and priorities in their jurisdictions. Through bilateral arrangements negotiated with our government, most provinces and territories have opted for a new approach. In 11 out of 13 jurisdictions, federal housing investments are now provided under a single funding envelope, and provinces and territories have the flexibility to invest in a range of programs and initiatives to reduce the number of households in need. As honourable members can appreciate, this is the opposite of the one-size-fits-all approach that could result from Bill C-400. CMHC also works closely with Aboriginal Affairs in Northern Development Canada and First Nations leadership, as well as housing organizations, to deliver federal funding to address housing needs on reserve, including supports for new construction and the renovation of existing homes on reserve. Toutes ces initiatives importantes sont exécutées en partenariat avec divers intervenants du secteur de l'habitation. Monsieur le Président, elles constituent les piliers de l'approche plurielle dont j'ai parlé au début. Since 2006, our government has invested some $13.1 billion in housing and homelessness programs. Working with our partners, assistance has been provided to about 755,000 Canadian households, including low-income families, seniors, persons with disabilities, and First Nations people. Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, our government believes that actions are more important than talk, and our focus is about delivering results, not holding more conferences. Mr. Speaker, I urge all members to reflect on this and to vote in support of our government's strong record of action on housing and vote against this bill. Thank you very much.
Resuming